record. So I've started the recording now, so we'll record it, and then if you want to get access to that later on, you can. So if I can share the screen, so hopefully you now can all see my screen,
Yes.
which is so Hub is a web-based system, so you're not loading anything onto your desktops. There's no CDs or flash drives to kind of load things on. It's all web-based, so you can get access to it from wherever you are. You get an individual login, and the login will give you access depending on what level of access rights you have, and that is down to your own. Whoever it is that's in charge of the system can assign as many or as few users as you want. You can have read-only access, or you can have full local admin access, depending on what you want, and you have complete control over that. So when you log in, there's a dashboard. Now the benefit from you guys is that you're pretty much teed up and ready to go, because we used Hub when we completed your condition survey back just in the middle part of last year. And for the outputs that we passed on to Terry. So all the data is sitting here kind of ready, loaded, and good to go as and when you want. So rather than showing you data from another organization, the data we're looking at is your data, the data that we currently have in the system for you. So this is the kind of initial dashboard. You'll see 1,264 properties, which I know will no doubt change, month to month as you acquire or sell or dispose of properties. But as at the date that we completed the last survey, it was 1,264 properties. The way the data is held in Hub, we separate out your properties from your blocks. So it's a kind of parent-child relationship. Every individual dwelling is held under properties, and every block is held under a separate block reference. And spent a bit of time with Terry at the start of the condition survey data, trying to rationalize your address list into blocks and properties, so we knew exactly what was where. If we click on the properties, this is 1,264, all of the properties that we currently hold for you. That property reference number should be familiar to you. That should be your property reference number, and the block reference number should also be familiar to you. So you'll see all these 171 Brand Street, they all have their own property reference, but they all have a communal, the same block reference, individual properties and communal block reference numbers. There's all sorts of filters down the left. We can filter around to try to find the particular property that you want, or there's search criteria to look for an individual dwelling. It tells us whether the property has got actual real survey data, whether it's been cloned. If it's been cloned, it tells us which property it was cloned from. And all 1,264 have the same format of data. If we drill into it, we can see the data that we hold. There are 71 individual data items that we hold. Is sorted alphabetically all the way down. If you're looking for a particular bit, if you look for kitchen, for example, the way we hold the data, pretty much for every component, there is a component and then an answer, so a question and answer. So it'll be kitchen, what's the size of the kitchen? There will be a replacement year for the kitchen. Not so much for kitchens, because kitchens are per property, but in some cases there will be a unit of measurement. It might be a square meter area of the roof or a number of windows. And that relates back to a schedule of rates, which is in the system as well, and that's your schedule of rates. So you can see, for example, we've got the kitchen here, we've got the kitchen replacement year 6, which is financial year 2026-27. All of these bits of information we can change. You can change one at a time, or you can change a bulk. You can change 50 properties at the same time, or 100 properties, depending on the size of the update that you want to run. We hold information about the cost. This cost comes from a schedule of rates. If it was an SHQS failure item, which we'll look at in a little bit, we can flag it here, whether it's an abeyance or an exemption. Or I know that will be the case for you for a lot of your kitchens. We hold component data, or we can hold component data. This will allow you to go in and say, well, the kitchen, for example, you can put in an installer, an installation date, the make and the model, and have that held against every individual property and every individual component. as well. We hold details, just basic property data. You can put in comments here. Tenants refuse a kitchen, big dog, keep clear, whatever you want in there that is useful for yourself to know. If we have energy data, which we don't have for you, but if you want energy data, we can hold energy data in here. It'll give us an error message because there's no data in there. And that will allow us then to run annual return reports, which will report you against each. You can attach files, you can attach a photograph or a PDF or of anything you want in there. And also we hold just a map, which is a Google map, so you can do a street view to have a look at the dwelling. So all that data is held for every single dwelling that's in the system. And in the same way it's held for the block. So if we looked at the block for that particular batch of properties, the same information, except this is all communal data. So this is the roof and the walls and the bin stores and the landscaped items. It will tell us these are the properties that are attached to that block. So if you dispose of a property, we can get rid of it. If you add a property in, or you acquire one that you didn't previously own, you can add it in to that block. If it's a mixed tenure block, you can see here we've got a share of, it's 100% share. I think at the moment we've defaulted all of your common blocks to 100% share. If you wanted to split that into a percentage share that you have, for example, maybe you only have 65% share of that common block, you can edit that to 65%. And then when we run the costs, you can choose to run the costs for the whole block, only your tenanted share of the block, or only the owner's share of the block. So you can very quickly toggle between that kind of information. So that's how the core data is held. And that core data informs pretty much all of the other items within HUB. There is a schedule of rates, which I mentioned, which every question and answer in the system will have a rate attached to it, and all of that can be changed. I mean, if we look, for example, if we look for kitchen, I need to see, because all our there we go. So if we look for kitchen, it tells us the rates. We can edit any one of these rates. We can edit the lifespan that we've attached to that rate. And then once we run the costs, it will update all the costs at the same time. So the rates and the core data that we looked at in here come together to produce the costs. If I can just try and move the pictures there. So this is your 30-year costs. It defaults to 5-year bandings, but we can change that to whatever you want. Let's go for 1-year bandings. Every question or every component down the left there, every year that we have a cost along the top.
Graham, can you look at a 10-year banding?
Yeah, you can look at any of those bandings you want to. So we can go to 10-year banding. Change the start date. So you can say, I want a 10-year banding, but I don't want to start until 2035. Mm-hmm. So you can chop and change that as much as you want. The costs themselves, you look at for example, you've got £352,000 against bathrooms. That in itself isn't very meaningful, but if you click on the cost, it takes you to the properties that inform that total. And from there, we can drill into the individual dwelling data that we looked at just a minute ago. We can look at the actual cost up here. We can go in there and say, well, actually, we don't want it in that year. We want to change it to a different year. So there's little tweaks you can do to the data in here. You can export that list out onto an Excel or a CSV file to then hand to someone or to make use of in another system as well. And again, I say you can drill into individual areas or particular property types. You'll see at the top, it says here it's 30-year cost and it's tenanted stock. It defaults to that when we open that page. For you, because everything's 100% against the share of the communal works at the moment, the tenanted stock will be the same as the owners or the same as the total, but we can change here. We can toggle between all tenanted or owners. If we click to owners, there should be nothing in there because we don't have a percentage divvy up. But if we do that, then it will allow you to see the owner's share, and that will obviously only show communal items. There's no individual internal elements that owners have a responsibility for. So there's a lot of stuff you can do by playing around with that. All of that we can also
Sorry, is there a bottom line for 2021?
we can go down to the bottom. So that's your totals.
Right.
Now bear in mind this is straight from the stock condition survey, and there's really been very little, if any, manoeuvring or changing of that data. So it will be reflexive of what the surveyors thought or saw when he was at the property. So there's been no kind of rationalizing of timings or components in here. That's work that you can choose to do if and when you decide to move on with HUB. So you can look at a particular area and move all the kitchens into one replacement year. Whereas at the moment,
would it be worthwhile mentioning, Graham, just at this time, that the actual survey was based on a 25% sample. So that's what it's based on.
Yes.
And the rest of the information's cloned.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's cloned in a fairly tight way that within a flat, all the flats within a single block should all be cloned from another flat in the same block. Because we did 100% of the blocks. So the cloning should be fairly tight, but in the same as any cloning system, the one property you surveyed may have been a particularly good or a particularly bad property, and there will be 2 or 3 others cloned from that one dwelling. So there is an opportunity to take all the kitchens, and you may find within a street you've got kitchens in year 4 and 8 and 6 and 2 and 1, because that's the condition that was seen at the time. So there's a bit of work to be done potentially there to start to kind of rationalize them into individual years, and that's quite easy to do within HUB.
And actually, Graham, I see there's a field there for inflation. Is inflation, is it just a one-off, or can you apply different rates of inflation throughout the plan?
Inflation at the moment is it just, if I click on, for example, 1%, it doesn't affect any of these, but we go down to the bottom, and it just applies a straight 1% inflation across the board all the way through. So at the moment, that's the only way inflation will appear in HUB. There's no, we can't pick and choose and say next year it'll be 1%, the following year it'll be 2.5, and who knows what it will be thereafter. Quite a lot of the time, this information is taken and added into other cost models where there's inflation built into that. So all the costs currently that default in HUB are set at kind of zero inflation across the board, and gives you the opportunity to maybe take that elsewhere. We can export that information out. We can export the data out into a big CSV file where you can play around with it. We can export it out just as an Excel version or a PDF version. We can print it. We can save that as into the report archive. So if you wanted to, prior to doing a lot of updates in the system, you wanted to kind of hold on to a version that you had, you can save it in the report archive. And you'll see up here we have a report archive. So it will save that Excel or PDF version, date and time stamped. Probably more relevant when you come to the end of March and you're running up here. We've got the annual return. You can run your annual return at the end of March, save it, date stamp it, and then move on and start updating data as you go on, but having that point in time saved that you can then use to input your data straight into the housing regulators portal.
Yeah, you were saying about if you wanted to smooth out the programme, you could just move stuff about. So if back in 2021, the bathrooms, for example, 350 grand, if you wanted to move that into 2022, lock, stock and barrel, how do you do that? What
we do is we run what we call a bulk update. So under the stock here, you see we've got bulk updates. So if we go into the bulk update file, we create a new bulk update. We just click on that and we can change that to whatever you want to say it. Bathrooms to 2022, however you want to call it. You can add in a bit of description if you want. We can leave it blank, and I keep having to move all the images of people's so I can see what I'm doing here. We click on OK. We look at the properties, we add the properties that we want to add in that bulk update. Here you can select by area, you can select just individual properties or the whole lot. You can
select by program, by project.
That is by that's by your area. But if you wanted to do it, for example, to if I go back, I'm jumping about a bit just to let you see. If I wanted to take every single one of the bathrooms that were in year one, we open that up, we export it out. It comes out as a CSV. We open the CSV. We've got, that's all the properties. We just go and we copy every single property reference number. I'll spare you the nitty gritty. There's a back to them. You can copy the whole lot if we wanted to. We go back to the bulk update. We go into bulk updates. We're creating this one here. We want to go in and I can paste all those property reference numbers in. And that would be, in essence, every property reference number that was in that original year. We've got that. Once we've got all the addresses in there, we go to our bulk update, bathroom replacement year. We just look for, oh, where's the bathroom? Change it to, if I see here, if I change it to year 2023, click OK, they'll all move. I won't do it because I don't want to start playing around with it. You also have to specify your reason why you're making that change. And it can be, you create your own library of reasons. It can be works complete, strategic planning, it was a Friday and I felt like it, whatever you want that list of library options to be, you create your own library of options. And then it saves it here. It will tell us that we've done a bulk update today and all the properties that we updated. And then when we go back into that cost summary, you would see, if we've done that update, you would see all of those bathrooms would have moved from here to here. And if we looked at an individual property against the bathroom replacement year, which you won't see at the moment, but against the bathroom replacement year, there would be a little icon and we'd hover over it and it would say, this was updated by David Adam on the 21st of January and the previous answer was this and it's now changed to that. So it gives you a little bit of an audit trail as to who changed it, when they changed it and why they changed it.
Take it similar if for ad hocs, like voids.
Ad hocs and voids, you can go in and do you can either do them one at a time. You can just go into an individual dwelling and say adequate noise insulation for SHQS. It was yes, it's now no. If I just make that change, just to let you see, so it now says over there, I changed that question from no. Now that would now say that you are failing SHQS under that item. So I'm just going to change it back so that so yeah, you can do one item at a time. You can do 20 items at a time. If you have a batch of repeatable items that you know when you do, for example, a kitchen bathroom program, and if you wanted to, if I go to the bulk update, for example, and you said, okay, all of these 109 properties, you've done a kitchen and bathroom program, you can create a package of items. Now I've done one here just as an example, a kitchen and bathroom package. So if you create your own, and it will change the bathroom to that answer, it will change all of these items. It will change your kitchen replacement year to year 20, your extract fan to yes. You can add as many items into that as you want, but it means rather than going and doing all that, I can just click apply and it will update all those 109 properties with every single one of those items that are in that work package. And you can create your own work packages, which of any combination of works that you want, that you know is a repeatable bit of work that you do every time you go in, and it saves you having to go in and pick individually 10 or 12 or 14 items at a time.
Would that be the way, Graham, for example, if I was getting information for a 30-year budget and the bathrooms, for example, 10 years from now, too expensive, we want to take it forward a year and smooth it over 4 years. What would be the easiest way of, can that be then imported back into the hub?
No, what you would then do is if you knew which properties were in hub for that particular year, you can take that out as a spreadsheet, if you like, and look at the let's say there's 100 properties and you wanted to do it 25 per year for over a 4-year period. You just decide which 25 you want to put in which year, do an update that says change these 25 properties to year 7, these to year 8, these to year 9, and update hub to that, and it will reflect that in your outputs. So
can hub receive an import from a spreadsheet, or does it have to be manually input?
It can you can copy and paste a batch of property ID references like I did there for the update, but it depending on what you're wanting to import, it can't import a random spreadsheet and make sense of it
I mean the spreadsheet that has been exported from it and then manipulated.
No, if you do an update, if you export a spreadsheet out and make changes to the spreadsheet, that spreadsheet can't be brought back into hub and overlaid. You would need to see which changes you wanted to do, and we can then look at different ways of making those updates.
Okay.
So that's how you do the bulk updates. That's the cost summary. In terms of SHQS, we can look at you've got quite a lot of properties that you will be aware of that are flagged currently as failing predominantly from a kind of bathroom or from a kitchen space or layout point of view, which I know, Terry, you said that you were aware of because of the restrictions in terms of spaces in some of these tenement properties.
Yeah, the biggest exemption is the galley style kitchens. I'm trying to think of the number that you come up with, Graham. It was 400 and odd. Yeah. And I was quite pleased that you actually noted that. The actual figure, I mean, as we've already said, it's based on a 25% sample survey. So it's basically an estimate. But the actual number of galley style kitchens that we have are about 580. So, but I'm still glad that you came up with that as an exemption. Because I'm actually surprised to note that a lot of other associations with similar type properties actually don't list it as an exemption.
Yeah.
I think the only other one that I'm aware of is actually Govan Housing. So I was quite pleased to see that coming up. The only thing that I will add is that the information that we didn't give Graham in purpose really was the component renewal unit costs. We didn't do that. Or we didn't agree any sort of component lifespans. Now, obviously, we've got our own data, our own information. And the one thing that I did notice that a lot of the unit costs and the lifespans that we currently use are pretty similar to each other.
Yeah.
Again, I was quite happy to see that as well.
Yeah, I mean, we've got 25 organisations who use Hub. And we've got lots of other organisations that we've done condition surveys for over the years. So we've got a massive kind of database, if you like, of component costs. And quite often we get asked to do kind of validation work for our clients on their scheduler rates to benchmark it against other associations. So we know what we would expect to see. And I think if there was significant outlying costs in yours, we would say, your costs for kitchens are particularly high or particularly low. So and that wasn't the case. I think the rates that we've looked at are quite similar. I'm just trying to kind of give you a little sample of, for example, here we've got, if the surveyors picked up that a property had failed, this is a cloned address. So you'll see here we've got, so it's failing under what we got under the safe working arrangements. You'll see here, quite often we see this, you've got a power socket directly above a hob or directly above an oven. So if we flag up something as failing SHQS, or there will be a photograph that shows you what the surveyors thought behind it was.
What I find really interesting about that photograph that you just came up with there, Graham, I would know automatically we're looking at that it's a tenant that's made their own alteration.
Yeah, because that's a hob, that's not an oven. That's not a cooker.
And I could possibly even give you their nationality as well. They won't get into that, but I did notice that some of the ones that had failed were previous non-accesses that we had for doing our refurb programme, for example.
Yeah.
That's a typical galley-style kitchen that we're looking at. And the other thing I could take out of that photograph, obviously the tenant was a bit surprised when you came to do the survey because they're certainly not prepared.
Yeah.
I think there was one that came up, Graham, 10 Elderpark Street. I don't know if you can source that just now.
This is for under the kitchen or the bathroom, or
I'm not sure why it failed. Actually, that's why I was wanting to ask you about it.
Okay, probably the best way to do, if we go straight into this and we look for if I spell it right. So 10, do you know which flat number it was?
Not really, no.
Well, if we looked at this first one here, which if I look at the costs, it will tell me, so that one, there was nothing SHQS failing on that one. If I look at that one, no, that was okay. It may be that it's been cloned from another address with that, which shouldn't be the case, but occasionally if it's a different, if it's a one-off property type within a block, then it may well have been, there we go. So it's this one here. So our surveyor has listed that as failing from adequate storage. So from that one, that doesn't count as storage because it's under a sink base unit. So we've got, looks like we've got 2 base units, 3 base units, some drawers and some more units. So
the reason why I'm interested in that one, Graham, that was only constructed in 2010.
Okay.
And we would normally describe at that time as being well above SHQS standard. So either the tenants removed a unit, it's difficult to tell from the photograph, but that would possibly tell me that all the other flats should have failed. But again, getting back to it, it's only 10 years old, so it would be, you know, obviously we've got and have a look at that when we can, but that somewhat surprised me.
Yeah, it definitely shouldn't have failed because the design at the time would have been designed to meet that.
Absolutely.
So it might be an anomaly, or if there is an issue, then obviously we need to look at that. But it certainly should have been designed to meet SHQS, but higher than SHQS.
I mean, I do. The surveyor who did the surveys, Gordon, he's a very, very experienced surveyor with us. He's I couldn't even hazard a guess how many surveys he's done over the years, and we do question sometimes when he sends stuff back about kitchen storage, and he's very adamant that he knows exactly what a 1 square meter, 1 cubic meter of kitchen storage amounts to. That's not to say that he doesn't occasionally make a mistake. You know, surveyors are humans, and occasionally, if it's when you're looking at the survey, which is done on a smartphone, with a little drop-down list of options, and the question is, you know, SHQS pass or fail, or for this particular one, it's adequate storage pass or fail. You know, occasionally he presses fail when he should have pressed pass. These anomalies happen. If that is an anomaly, it's very easy for us to go in and change that and say, actually, no, it's a pass, in which case it removes it, and we can pick up anything that's been cloned from it as well and say, no, they should all pass. So if there's anomalies like that are either wrong, then we can amend them. Or if you go in and find that, actually, do you know what, that one is failing, but it's because a tenant has removed a base unit to put in a big fridge freezer. And whilst we recognise that one fails, the 3 that are cloned off it shouldn't fail because they are, you know, they're not the same. So there's all manner of little amendments and tweaks we can do to give you that comfort that the data that is in there hopefully is relevant and relatable to what you've got.
Can I ask, see for the purposes of generating the report, SHQS report, well, we need 100% data rather than clone data, so that we're matching the numbers that were put in previous years?
Well, no, I mean, it's an acceptable route to have clone data. I mean, every housing association, there's very few housing associations that have 100% surveyed data.
No, I mean, like I said, the clone, sorry, the abayances that Terry mentioned there, I think it was 600, was it, we have, but the report's going to be showing 400.
Yeah, we could, if the annual return report, which is here, it's not complete because we don't have energy data for you, but it does look here. This should mirror the criteria that you do for your submission. They've changed it. It used to be that if you said you had an exemption or an abeyance, you had to specify exactly what the abeyance was and under which criteria. Now it just asks for how many you have in abeyance and how many you have in exemption. So you'll see here, this will count. If you have an exemption or an abeyance, it will count them here and it will remove them from your SHQS field. So it does take acknowledgement. We haven't done that for you, but it's easy for us to go in and all those kitchens that you think are in exemption or in abeyance, we can flag them as such, and therefore it'll remove them from your or take account of them in your annual return figures.
Can you put historical ARP returns in there? I see 1928 0. Just get the total amount of property.
Yeah, this how HUB works is HUB works by reporting the year that has just passed as well as the year that is coming up. Because the data that we have for you started this financial year. This will report that you had no failure because we had no data that predated April 2020. This is really where you're currently sitting at the moment, 429 fails under 1 and 5 failing under multiple criteria. But again, once we've flagged those properties as being in abeyance or an exemption, then those will be flagged up here as well, and it'll take account of your SHQS and your return. Once, if we get energy data, then all these sheets become populated with your various SHQS or your ISH compliance status as well.
How do we get EPCs into that?
We can give you a template. If I very quickly just show you an example of an organisation who does have this information to hand. So this is another organisation, Shire Housing Association. So we've got energy data for them. We can give you just a spreadsheet template. We don't need all of the nuts and bolts to inform the SAP rating. We really just need the SAP version, the date, the RRN number was useful. Everything else can be populated by HUB. This information is then used to inform your ISH. We can, if I copy that and we click on the link, that'll take us to the EST website. So we can, these are horrible. I never type them in properly, and no matter how many times I do it, but you type that in and that will then show you a copy of the lodged EPC that's against that dwelling. So, if you have to evidence, if you say, well, we've got a SAP rating here of 69, can you prove it? Well, yes, we can, because there's the EPC, the lodged EPC. That's how the data would be held for your energy ratings. We also create what we call energy types within the system, which means that for those properties that you don't have a SAP rating for, we can clone them. And it would tell us up here, if it was the source of the SAP rating, it would tell us that it was a cloned SAP rating. It would tell us where it was cloned from. The data, that the actual energy data for individual dwelling is held like that. So we can exempt a property from ISH. We can tell you what the source was. So all of that data, once it's loaded in, would allow you to then report on your ISH more fully, your SHQS more fully. I go back to.
I think that would look really good in that format, Graham. The way that we store the data just now is on an Excel spreadsheet. We've got SAP ratings, we've got clone ratings as well. for us to transfer that onto your data, I think we've got about 900 EPCs that we would want to transfer. Would that have to be all done individually then?
No, we get, for example, with Venue, Venue send us a spreadsheet every couple of months or so with all the EPCs that they've completed. With just, it's about 10 fields of data, and we import it, and it takes minutes to import the spreadsheet, and it just keeps that ticking over and up to date.
Yeah, but for you to do that for Elderpark, we would obviously have to be part of your hub.
Yeah. Well, once we got, all we do is we'd send you the Excel template. You'd fill it out, populate it with probably data that you hold already, and we bring it back in. The only sticking point we've found is that not everybody holds the RRN reference, which is the unique EPC reference number. And the only reason we really would need that will allow us to link directly to where the EPC is held. We can hold data without that, but it just means if someone came in, if, for example, Ms. Dugan came in and Christine Dugan came in and said, can you, I was doing a
By the way, I have to say, she's a personal friend of mine.
We've had a meeting with Christine Dugan a couple of years ago.
Several, by the way.
Well, we had a meeting with her and said, what's not there that you would like to see? And her biggest bugbear is evidence, as you no doubt know. And so that was introduced partly on the back of a discussion with Christine Dugan to say, well, if you to say we've got that SAP data, how can you demonstrate, how can you prove it? We can now click straight to the RRN and straight into the EPC, lodged EPC. We are in discussions with EST at the moment about data sharing agreements to allow us access to every housing association's lodged EPC, and then an individual data sharing agreement signed by each individual housing association will allow us to access that information on your behalf and load it straight into Hub for you. But until that time, we can load your Excel data in, and that would then mean when you went on to your annual return, it would all these tables would be populated with the appropriate rating for you, and also your EASE compliance levels.
You see the cost for uploading the EPCs ongoing. For example, what you're doing with Venue, is that a part of the license fee? Yeah.
No, there's no. We wouldn't charge you for doing that. That's just a part and parcel of what you get for your license. The only thing that's I mean, I'm trying to think if on the odd occasion, if ever, that we've actually had to charge anyone over and above your annual license. No, we haven't. I mean, we'll Hub is written in a way, hopefully, that it is you can do it yourself. You can do a lot of the updates and the data changes yourself. It's designed with a simple surveyor's head in mind and not an IT developer's head in mind. But having said that, if you want us one of our clients gives us a list every 2 or 3 months of here's all the work that we've done on our stock. Here's all the kitchens, the bathrooms, the ad hoc, the void repairs. As long as we've got a UPRN attached to each one, we can do it for you. So the only time we look to say, look, this is a bit of a different thing, we might have to charge if you ask for some bespoke development work done on the system, or if it's an unusually high volume of work. But to be honest, James, I don't think we've really ever charged anyone any extra for just managing your data or helping you manage your data on your behalf. And if you've got data up to upload, we've got it all set up. It doesn't take us any time to do it. So it would be a bit cheeky and remiss of me to come back to you and charge every time you did it. So your annual license gives you access for as many people as you want, and whatever you have a user list. It would be one person, I suspect, possibly someone like David, who would be your local admin user. Because we're logged under my name, I've got every single user in the system. But if we went to Elderpark, at the moment, it's just Terry who's down as a read-only user. You just go in and add a user, and you specify what level they want, and you can have as many or as few as you want. We've had some clients make external organisations like you may be aware of FMD, who do a lot of financial kind of support for smaller housing associations. We give Fetis and his guys a login detail. They can access the system directly on behalf of that association and pull off all the 30-year costs that they need without having to ask the association to do it. It's entirely up to you who you want access for, but there's no Dundee City Council were a user. They had something like 40 or 50 people registered on the system as part of users. You know, it can cope with as many or as few as you want.
Yeah, so on the basis of thinking this through, right, there's kind of 4 things that need to be done for our data to be accurate on there. So one would be add the 82 new houses we've got. Secondly would be to smooth out the programme, I suppose, in a certain way across there. The third one would obviously be PCs, and then the fourth one would get the stock condition, the SHQS data right, because we've got 580 versus 400 and things like that. So all that would be done at the start to get the
yes,
data accurate.
We would work with you at the beginning. Once, if you want to go ahead, we would say, right, okay, what do you want to update to kind of get it up and running or get it up to date? We would work with you and get you up to date. Once it's up to date and you're happy with all the data, it's then entirely up to you, David, whether you do it yourself or whether you want us to help you do it. We would help you as much or as little as you wanted thereafter. So I'm conscious of there's been a bit of a kind of a whistle stop tour of the system there. There's lots of other bits and pieces that if you wanted to go into, we can go into either now or another time. You've got all your admin settings there, which allows you to look at property types. You can assign properties as being non-self-contained or self-contained within the scope of SHQS or not. These are kind of little tweaking and fine-tuning stuff. The costs and the schedule rates, again, we're doing some work on that at the moment so that you will be able to look at an individual cost and say, rather than applying an allowance for professional fees across the bottom line of everything, you can allocate specific prelims and fee percentages to individual rates so that you can bespoke the rates a little bit more for your own purposes. So there's little bits and pieces. HUB is an ongoing development project, I guess, and generally what we do is the updates and the changes that we do are in response to the users coming back to us and saying, it's really good, I quite like what it does here, but if it could do that, that would be good, or if it could do that, that would be really nice and really helpful for us. And if that's the case, we can, you know, that goes to the top of our development plan and we tweak it and it gets run out. And because it's a web-based system, once we make an update, you get access to it. You don't have to load anything on. You log on one day and you know, you've got the update that you wanted. We're also taking the opportunity at the moment, whilst we have a little bit of downtime from our survey work, we are creating a batch of how-to videos, little video tutorials, so that for all the kind of common tasks, like how do you update a batch of properties, how do you change something, how do you run this report, we're doing a little individual kind of videos that will be available under this help menu, and you can log in and it will talk you through how to do a bulk update, how to find a property, how to delete a property, how to add a property in, so that hopefully all the kind of normal questions that you may have, there will be a little video that will run that you can see. It'll take 3 or 4 minutes and you'll hopefully talk you through it and walk you through it. So that's currently on my desk to-do list at the moment, and we're working our way through them just now, and they should hopefully be available over the next kind of 2-3 weeks.
Graham, I was going to ask you there, obviously that covers all our tenanted properties and blocks.
Yes.
What about commercial properties or offices, for that matter? Do you have do other organisations use that to put all their...
Yes, they can. I mean, we can add in any asset, if you like, that you have. All we would look at doing is saying, okay, maybe the data that you want to hold against that asset is different from the data that you might want to hold against a typical flat or a house. It might be more bespoke. So what we would do is we would create, very briefly, I'll show you that, for example, the job that we just finished, we have 3 survey types: blocks, flats and houses. We can look at an individual questionnaire for the house. This is all the data that we collected for each of the properties within as a house. We can create a new survey type for an office or for a shop unit, for example, and complete some data import, pop us the data, and it would, when we looked at the properties, it would be a different asset reference number, Office 5 or whatever you want to call it, and you click into that and we would hold a different type of data. We've just finished for Lowther. Lowther Homes have about 300 commercial units that they operate under the Wheatley kind of group banner, predominantly in Glasgow, but some in Edinburgh. And we've just finished a survey for Lowther Homes on all of their commercial units. Very different type of data that they wanted, but that's in HUB. I mean, we have you'll see the Lowther. You see we have a whole batch of Lowther commercial data sets that we can tap into. So yes, we can include whatever property type that you have. We can add that in, and we can isolate that out when you do your reports. For example, we can flag them as being not part of the SHQS. We can or not self-contained, so they wouldn't get kind of lost in the SHQS, but you would still hold them as a data and an asset within the system.
Excuse me, sorry. Graham, on a similar note to that is what about common paths, back courts, stairwells, and tenement flats?
Yeah, I mean in terms of just the data, or in terms of just the data, it's held against an individual block. So we would look at an individual block, and this holds data on. You can see here we've got bin stores, boundary walls.
Yeah.
So that holds it for the block, and we said before that at the moment you'll see that's 100%. If you had a 50% share, we change that to 50%, and then when we report in the cost summary page, we go to we only look at the owner occupiers. We report on that, and that will isolate out the share that is in theory liable, the owners are liable for the communal works. We can either isolate it out as owners, or we can just show your own, or we can show it all. So there's a way of. I
think Dave was talking about, presume Ontario, Charlie know better than I do. It's the things outside the curtilage of the blocks, so that the paths, the landscaped areas, all the stuff.
Okay, maybe yeah. Please, I mean, we can treat them. One of our other clients, it's Rockazy, actually. They have the way they treat their landscaped areas. They treat it as a kind of single cost centre. They don't really allocate them against individual blocks or individual dwellings. And so we created an asset, if you like. We named it, I can't remember, I think we named it estate-wide. We can have estate-wide 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or as many as you want. We did something similar for Thistle, as part of Thistle's ongoing challenges, should we say, that we allocated or created a new batch of assets and allocated communal landscaping works to each one of those. So they weren't allocated to an individual dwelling or an individual block, but they were part of the overall cost summary that you could report on, and data that you could drill into and look at and amend and change and move around. And again, they didn't get added into the SHQS-ish kind of pile, if you like. They were held in isolation. So yeah, we can add in as many ad hoc assets, if you like, and just name them, define them as such, and report on them as such within HUB. It's really entirely up to you how many you want to add in, and they would appear in here, down the list as depending on how you wanted to describe them. There will be a cost attributed to it, and by using the filter criteria, we could remove them from the cost summary, or we could add them into the cost summary. It's really entirely up to you how you want that to appear.
There, Graham, see regarding the data storage.
Yes.
Is it just properties throughout? There's no names, addresses, or anything?
We hold no information about an individual tenant in the property. If you look at the individual, the data we hold sits in here. So we have the stratum is we call it a strategy, we call it an archetype, how we define that property, and that was how the properties were cloned. But it's only about property type, age, construction, all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
So we hold, that's the most personal, if you like, we get in terms of data storage. The only other thing might be if you wanted to add in under the comments section, the ability to type in something there. Potentially, I guess, you may choose to type in something that identifies an individual tenant within that dwelling, but I would suggest you wouldn't. I would suggest that would just be something to do with, you know, tenant refused kitchen. That might be all you want to put in there, or you may not use it at all if you didn't want to. So we hold no personal data at all. Okay.
Is there a user group for the hub?
There is. We have it would have been nice. We would have had a user group meeting last year, but obviously circumstances prevented that from happening. So ideally we have an annual user group where we invite people along to. We share with you where Hub is currently at in terms of who's using it, what we're doing with it. We share what our kind of immediate kind of plans are for the coming year, what we want to do to the system. And it gives you an opportunity to tell us what you think, good, bad, or indifferent, and therefore what you would like to see coming out of the system. I think David actually sat in at the last one prior to as a potential user at the time, but not a user. So you've been at one, David, and hopefully as the system grows, and as I say, we've got 25, I suspect. Within the next month, we will have another 3 coming on board as well. The more people that use the system, hopefully the more people will get engaged with the user group, and the more feedback we get as to what you like and what you don't like, and therefore how it moves on will be dictated by what you say. We're not a big you know, UK-wide organisation that has, you know, if you have something that you want to look at in the system, you phone us up and you speak to either me or you speak to the Rosa, my developer, who's actually sitting with the code in front of her behind the keyboard, able to kind of deal with something there and then. If you want me to put you in touch with some of our other users, I'm happy to do that. I can put you in touch. I'm just thinking from round about where you are.
No, that's fine, Graham. Just in my experience, I found that dealing with software houses, they tend to say that we're the only ones that are having this issue. And once you go along to user group meeting, you think it's across the board. You know, that's fine. If you have a user group, that's fine.
We do. I mean, what we find is that some of our users are very, very active users and really make a lot of use of the system. Some of them are very kind of inactive users and have the system, but really don't use it a great deal. And one of the reasons we're producing these how-to videos, which we'll be issuing out and making available, is to try to encourage those who maybe aren't making full use of the system to see, why are they not doing it for this? Why are you not using the bulk update function, or why are you not using the work package function? And generally it's because they don't know it's there or don't know how to. And so hopefully this will enhance the engagement with the users, and that can only help us and hopefully the wider user group. So
okay. See on your enhancements, if an organisation should request an enhancement that they pay for?
No, generally it depends. I mean, if it's just that report's really good, but could you have an extra couple of fields in there that could give us some more information? No, there's no cost associated with that. If you said, I'm even trying to think off the top of my head what it might be, but if you wanted to add in a real kind of niche bit of work that only you guys would make use of, then that might be something that we would say, look, you know, there's a bit of development time involved in that. We would look to agree with you what that might be. But bug fixes, general updates, all the enhancements.
No, I wasn't meaning bug fixes. I was meaning the likes of that enhancement you mentioned there. Would that be made available should another organisation want it at the next update?
Yeah, if, for example, if it was something like, I don't know, if there was 2 or 3 extra fields of data you wanted to add in, then if that was something that everyone would benefit from, then it would be unfair to charge one organisation for the privilege of that. It's a shared benefit, if you like. So no, we wouldn't look at coming back to you and charging you an enhancement on that. The only thing we have charged for and it's been reflected in the overall license fee, was we added in this components function. This was at a request from a number of users in the group, and they said, look, this would be a really good thing to have in. And we looked at it and said, okay, in order to have this working, we will have to kind of reflect that as a cost. And I think generally the annual license for all the users went up by about £80 a year as a result of having that functionality in there. So it was in the scheme of things, it was a minor negligible cost, and we wouldn't go ahead and do any kind of update that had a financial implication unless everyone was on board and everyone understood and everyone was happy for it to happen. So if there is an enhancement, if the enhancement is a shared cost, and the more people that share the cost, the less it is. So it's of a magnitude of, you know, another 50 quid or another 20 quid onto your license fees. It's because we're a small company, generally our costs are quite small. And I know some of the other organizations out there who provide some of the kind of larger, well-known systems are, significant cost involved in engaging with these people. So.
Yeah, I did have a look through the demo on your website. Is there a module within the property lists that gives a total value for a property? I'm thinking for insurance here, whenever you're renewing your insurance, where I could get a total value from the hub.
As in like a reinstatement value?
Yes.
Yeah. There's not, and it's funny you asked that, because I had a discussion with another association just at the end of last year, and a subsequent follow-on discussion with the RICS, because we are looking at adding in a module that links to an RICS module that would allow us to include a reinstatement, or they don't call them reinstatement valuations anymore, but they call them I think it's
for renewing insurance, the value. So, the most of the information is there. So
it is something we are looking at, James, and it's something that I suspect if we did it, depending on what our add-on cost for us would be, it's something that I would suspect there wouldn't be a cost associated with it, but there would be under your properties details page, there would be ability to we maybe need to add in some additional key data, like a square meter area for each individual dwelling, and that might have to be standardized to say it's a typical house of 80 square meters or whatever it may be, and therefore your reinstatement value is whatever it might be, you know, I don't know, 180,000 per property or something of that nature, and that would be backed up by the BCIS's kind of schedule. So yeah, it's something we're looking at doing.
See, on the components, is there intended facility to be used for depreciation? Thinking as we have a timeline there, and there's a depreciation.
There's not. There's not. We have dabbled and looked in the past about incorporating some degree of component accounting for functionality in the system. The majority of our clients say that they hold the component accounting function elsewhere, and they don't need that to be built into Hub. There is a lot of I guess work involved in building something like that into the Hub, and we took the decision a while ago that's already there elsewhere, and for us to add that into Hub wasn't necessary. But part of the ability to put in the component functionality was that we can put in an install date, and you can put that as retrospectively. You can say this kitchen was installed in 2018, and it cost us 2,968 quid. And you have a lifespan of 20 years. So that information you can extract out of Hub, and I've very quickly just kind of, if I show you the aptly named Anonymous Housing Association. So we have some bit of data. This is maybe the one that you've seen. So we can produce some component reports that will give us the install date, the date that's currently in Hub for its renewal, the lifespan. We can filter that by individual components. We can filter it by areas, and we can export it out into Excel. So there's an element of information that may assist you in your component accounting process, but it doesn't do a component accounting function in its own right.
I know you said at the beginning the information is all stored on the cloud.
Yes.
I'm just thinking if we start to add files and photographs, etc., the memory on the cloud is going to be used up. Have you got a limit?
No, it's Azure. It's Microsoft Azure, so it's one of the biggest kind of most stable, safest cloud providers are out there. And the way our module works is that we have the ability just to adjust the storage capacity on the cloud as much or as little as we want, so we can increase it or decrease it. We do it on a daily basis, and so as more people use the system, all we do is we increase the capacity that we have for that. So to date, James, we are still some way short of our capacity that we currently have. I don't see that getting full anytime soon, but we monitor it on a regular basis, and if we need to increase the capacity, we can do that. There is no limit on the capacity that we have available to us, so we can increase that if and when it's required.
I think the information as well, you've got one code writer, is that right? I beg your pardon? You've got one code writer?
Yes, yeah, we do.
Yeah. God forbid that she happens to be having a worse. Do you have a plan B?
Yes, we do. We have another organisation that we work with we had a brief period where my previous developer left and we were still looking to recruit someone else. And we have a partner organisation that we work with who know the system very well. And they've got people that we can use to kind of fill the gap. In fact, we brought them in just at the tail end of last year to do some bespoke development work for us, where we can now, we have data import templates. So we can now import data from organisations from whom we haven't done a condition survey. We're doing it for Angus Housing Association, for example. So we now have a mechanism for doing that. So we've got the company called iAcademy. You can find them, EYE Academy, iAcademy. You can find them online. They're a data specialist software developer, and we've worked with them for a number of years, and they will continue to support us as and when we need them. They did a penetration test for us recently on the system, so they do continuous penetration tests to keep it robust and safe. So sorry, the long-winded answer to your question, James, is yes, we do have a plan B. So.
Just one final question, Graham. 19th of January, when did your January sale start?
January sale's been and gone, did we not tell you? No, we don't have a January sale. We are, as you'll see if you shop around, we are significantly cheaper than anyone else who's providing this kind of system on the marketplace. We base the pricing on a per property. So the more properties you have, the difference in price with a kind of baseline of down at 500 properties. You'll have seen from our proposal that we sent you through how the kind of banding on the system works. We have in the past, if we have done a condition survey for a client and they want to continue making use of HUB thereafter, then we have offered a 10% discount on the first year's license with HUB, which I'm happy to share with you if you want. So that first year, I think your license for the year is about 4,600. So we can look at taking 10% off that for your first year. It's a 3-year license, and thereafter you would go back to the 4,600. So there's, yeah. I mean, if you want, James, I'm happy to do that discount on that first year.
I think the price will increase actually by the time we add the 82 properties.
Yeah, it might well. I mean, for 82, I think from memory,
yeah, at your level, 5,685 is the price.
Oh, right, yes.
5,685.
It goes up. I think it would go up by about £1.80 a property or something like that. So for 80 odd properties, it's a marginal increase.
Just a wee small point, Graham. I saw it right at the start. 1,264. It's actually 1,256 properties that we've got. Now I know that's no your fault. That's down to the person that actually sent you the original list of stock. So we've got 8 too many on that. It may be it's 8 owner occupiers have been included by mistake.
Okay.
That may be shared owners, is it?
It won't be, I don't think, James, but it could be. I think that the new total we've got with the House Trust new build will be 1,388. That will be the the up-to-date number.
Okay.
But that may be 8 shared owners. You might be right with that, James.
It's very easy. We said earlier on, Terry, that if you run with a system, we'll spend a bit of time with you getting it cleaned up so that it's it matches exactly, not just your costings, but the number of properties as well. If you've got extra properties to add in, we'll do that. That's just to get you kind of started off in the right foot.
I've not spent a lot of time getting into the details that you've showed us there, Graham, but the one thing that's came to my mind, I know this was a 25% sample survey. I think it'd be great if there was 100% survey done, where you wouldn't get access to 100%, but it would make the data so much more up to date and correct.
Yeah.
That's for. I don't know if Gary or David would want to give that some thought, or if it'd be an unusual request. I mean, do any of your clients ever ask for 100% survey?
Yes, occasionally 100% in the one go, which is very unusual. In fact, North Ayrshire Council, a few years ago now, asked us to do 100% survey in one go. That's 12,500 surveys in the one hit. That's very unusual. We get occasionally, but the majority of the time, what we get asked for is 25% or 20%, and then a rolling program, maybe of 20% a year for 3 or 4 years. My gut feeling is when you get past 70%, it's significantly the law of diminishing returns, that last 20% is expensive because it's hard to get access, and therefore the productivity drops. And really that last 20% is not really going to tell you very much more than you know from having looked at 8 of the other flats in that block. To get into that 1 or 2 flats that you didn't get into, it's really not going to tell you much more. So it's entirely up to individual organisations. Some of them still like to push for it, where Eastern Bartonshire Council are just in the throes of trying to secure a contract for their final 20% sample. But a condition survey generally is really only valid for about 4 or 5 years. And so kind of once you get, if you do 20% a year, at the end of 5 years, you think, right, we're done. Kind of that first 20% is looking like it's starting to get out of date. So
it's maybe worthwhile kind of noting that what we've already got at Elderpark. Obviously we've got a 30-year cost plan, and what we've got is actual data for about the last 20 odd years for all the component renewal that we've already carried out.
Yeah.
And that's basically based on the lifespans that we've adopted. So that's there, but it's all in a spreadsheet format. And that's where the difficulty lies, I feel, that it should be more modernised, I think, how we abstract our data. But that's how we're sitting just now. We do have and I have to say, I didn't give Graham any of that information when we previously updated the components, because you could probably have done your survey for your office then. But it did sort of marry up what I've seen so far. It's married up with quite a lot of the data that we've got. I mean, for example, the 10-year band that you've got, I think it's about expenditure about £10.8 million. Our own costs are about 10.4. So it's actually quite surprisingly quite close. I was quite pleased to see that.
Good. Well, it's always nice to hear that what we've seen. Quite often you get the situation where what we've seen on sites doesn't always tally with what the association thinks they have on site. Sometimes there's a bit of a gap between those two bits of information.
Well, that was a good bit that was talking about, Graham. The 30-year plan were way different to each other.
Yeah.
We're actually about double the amount of cost that you're recommending. And most of that is due to the fact that a lot of our tenements that were refurbished in the middle 1970s are probably due for a major refurbishment after about 2032, I believe. So there's quite a lot of additional costs at that period. But for the next 10 years, which I think is the most important period, it's pretty similar.
Well, again, it's easy to add in if you have actual work programs planned or more kind of significant spends planned. It doesn't doesn't necessarily manifest itself in a like-for-like component replacement renewal.
I agree with you there.
You can build that in. We can add in items for, you know, significant stone repair contract, for example, or especially if you're not so much with yourselves, but if you've got clients, what we do with have a lot of non-traditional housing stock, where you've got significant kind of repairs, overcladding on Athol steel properties, these kind of things, where, you know, there's the ability to add in exceptional costs to mirror that. So, okay.
Graham, I was going to ask about condition reporting, electrical condition reporting. Is there anything in there that you could get? I know it's not a component per se, but it is part of asset management, along with Legionella. Is there any sort of a going forward and to look into that, to bring it into, so you get everything in one place, like your 5-year cycles?
I mean, we can, in terms of if I just thinking who else we've got, if I look at, it's different housing associations want different stuff in here. I'm not kind of giving away too many trade secrets here, but this is an organisation who have got things like door entry maintenance. They've got electrical inspection and testing provision.
Yeah.
So you can add in an allowance or a provision for anything. We had one association that wanted a 55-year plan. Don't ask me why, but they wanted a 55-year plan, and they included things like stock condition survey costs every 5 years. They included, pretty much, I mean, the kitchen sink is included because it's part of the kitchen, but they included everything, including the kitchen sink, in there. So it's entirely up to you. As I said earlier, when we talked about whether it includes inflation allowances or not, some of our organisations hold different sets of data out with HUB that they don't want to add into HUB. It depends on how you deal with things like reactive repair allowances or cyclical, pure cyclical as opposed to planned maintenance. It's up to you what you want to put in there, but we can add in as much or as little as you would want.
Yeah, again, Graham, I think it would make sense to have a cyclical maintenance programme as well there. I mean, again, at Elderpark, that's all on a spreadsheet. Things like paintwork programmes, even gas servicing. Yeah, it would make sense to have that in the one data sheet.
Yeah, we can add all these things. We can add in if you want it, and then we can isolate. We've got this thing called cost categories, where you can split the costs up into your own defined categories, and it may well be you, instead of these, you have capital and cyclical, and by expanding them, it's the same cost that we've just seen, but they're just summarized and grouped. So instead of these categories, you could create your own of capital, cyclical, whatever you want. It's entirely up to you. Whether, if we talked about having costs for communal areas that are not allocated to individual dwellings or blocks, you know, we could have a category that is for that cost centre alone, and then you can isolate those out. So there's different ways of including costs, but having them separated, if you like, within the system, so that you can isolate them individually. And again, if what you want the system to show you doesn't currently feature, then you let us know, and we can, for the most part, we can make an adaptation and allow you to do it, because it's in our interests for the system to deliver what you want it to deliver. And so if you see something you'd like but it's not there, then that's part of what James was asking about user groups. We have a user group, and you bring that up and say, here's a list of things we would like to see, and you might find in a user group suddenly 10 other folks say, yeah, that would be good. We would all like that. And if that's the case, then that's the first priority on our desk the next day.
Next, another question is, 25%. I'm assuming that all archetypes were captured in that. 25%.
Yes, it was. We got a real good spread. We talked about archetypes, or as we call them, stratas. We normally have about 10 stratas. For you, we have 39 strata. So these are all individual property types. We haven't loaded in the description here, but that would be based on all this kind of information here, which is the apartment size, the property type, and then individually within your areas, you have areas which are these areas. So within each of those strata types, 25% was sampled. So I don't think, from memory, I don't think we were short on any of them. I think we got into pretty much every single property type that we wanted to. That was Gordon, our surveyor, he seems to have a way with accessing, in a nice, pleasant, professional way, accessing people. The people seem to like to let him into their house, which is good.
Yeah. I have to just say as well, Graham, all these surveys were carried out during the sort of a lockdown period.
Yeah.
So I get a wee bit. I think they had to sort of delay it for a wee while till the restrictions were lifted. So as far as the survey went, that went particularly well. And another matter that the surveyor did as well, if he came across anything of an urgent nature, dampness, mould, that type of thing, he reported that directly to us as well to deal with. And I'm pleased to say that there were very little urgent repairs that were, I think we had about 5 during the whole survey. So I was kind of pleased to see that as well.
Yeah, I think generally, if it's something that we feel has maybe more of a health or safety issue, that you probably should look at it sooner rather than later, rather than wait until you just get data. Then we generally we would tell you straight away. There's a ridge tile hanging off, or there's an exposed plug socket in a living room with a family in it, or whatever. Then these things we generally tell you straight away. So the survey went well. I think we had a few calls from some of your tenants. Some majority very pleasant, very nice people. 1 or 2, as you always get. Maybe not quite so much, but on the whole, from my perspective, the survey went fine. It was a very nice, straightforward survey. It worked quite well for us.
Graham, again, a question. The data that sits behind it, like the roofs, was there measurements taken?
Measurements, as in Gordon will have. He does his own little kind of sketches, and we'll measure. Up in the roof, for example, he will measure from as best he can from ground level. Right. So it's an estimate. So if you look at, for example, principal roof covering area, 224 square meters is Gordon's kind of best estimate from the ground for that property. So, and the same with linear meterage for gutters and downpipes, and for wall finishes. They are not physical, tape on the wall measurement. If we do, in some cases, you didn't ask for it, but quite a lot of our surveys will do a full RDSAT survey, in which case the guys are in site with laser measures to do floor area calcs, because we need that for RDSAT calcs. But so the measurements that we've got, David, are estimations based on Gordon's kind of what you can see from the ground level. Okay. I'm conscious there's a lot in here. I'm happy to keep sharing it with you. I'll come back. I'll leave it away. Come as much or as little as you want. I can forward through to you the link to the demo site, which I think, James, you said you've already had a look at. If you want to have a nosy about, play with it. I guess the benefit from because it's the data's already sitting there. In terms of lead-in period to get you up and running with it, if you wanted to go ahead, you would be up and running by 3:30. It's now 3:25. There is no loading of systems, and it's a username and a password that you'll be assigned. You then have access to the system, I would follow on. The paperwork can follow on. There's a terms of use agreement, just standard terms of use. We would follow that on. A formal kind of acceptance and an offer can follow on. I've no that's paperwork that follows on. So if you wanted to go ahead, it's straight away. There's no lead in, and then thereafter, as much or as little training as you wanted, as you felt you needed. There's not a cap on how much training we give you. Ideally, we would come out to your office and we would sit with you and we would go through it all. Clearly, that's not the case at the moment, but when that happens, we can come out and do it with you as much or as often as we want. You're very close to us. We're only just up at Charing Cross. You're down in Govan, so you're, 20 minutes in the car to get down to where you are. So, and if you've got questions after today, you want to ask me anything, come back to me, ping me an email, and you know, we'll get back to you as quick as we can.
Yeah, he's got the proposal, I think, and I know it was months ago. I think you've got the proposal, haven't you?
Yeah, the proposal that Graham sent me was about 4 or 5 months ago, I think.
Yeah, there was. I think there's been a slight update on it. I'll send you an update. I think there was a 1.5% price increase that ran, which I mentioned to you actually just at the tail end of the year, that was coming on stream at the beginning of January. So, but I'll also include in that revised one just the offer of the 10% reduction in the first year, because we've just finished a condition survey with you. So, so I'll refresh the proposal and just ping it out to you this afternoon or tomorrow morning, so you've got a kind of current version of it. But broadly speaking, it hasn't really changed from what you saw the last time.
Okay. Appreciate your time.
Not at all. Not at all.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Well, any questions? And as I say, as soon as you want to, if you decide for whatever reason you don't want to go ahead, and that's fine, just let me know so that I don't keep pestering you for for it. Just but a bit of an update on either one way or the other would be helpful. Okay.
Thank you, Graham. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Okay. No problem.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers, Graham.